if we play with a midfield three, is there any team in the championship that wouldn't take these three midfielders as their starting midfielders? Maybe one or two, but most would say, yeah, we'll take Ampadu, Kamara, and Gruev any day. This is a great. These are awesome midfielders for this level. And so Farke's really got a headache at multiple positions. You got the Dan James problem. If Patrick Bamford's fit and Piru's scoring goals, I mean, I know we say
I'm not saying this right. I'm not saying this right now. I think you could take Ampadu out this side if Pascal Strauch's been fit, and we'd be absolutely fine as well. I think we'd be more than good.
So we asked people on Twitter that, and this is the reason we asked. Like, I think some people misunderstood the poll. They're like, "Oh, why are you trying to stir up trouble? Why are you?" But we're not debating. It's a true conundrum Daniel Farke is going to have to face, and I'm happy that he has to make the decision and not me. So I said, assuming this is the poll we asked, 1,034 of you answered, so we appreciate the participation. But it was on Twitter or whatever, X or whatever it's called. Assuming the whole side is fit again, what changes would you make to the starting 11 if you were Daniel Farke, if any? And tell us why below. So the options were Dan James comes in for Willy Gnonto. The second option is Pascal comes in for Ethan Ampadu. The third option is Ethan Ampadu back to center mid. So it's implicit that he would replace either Kamara or Gruev. So you can kind of combine 2 and 3. And then the fourth option is no changes. Here are the results of the poll. 5% of you said that Dan James should come in for Willy Gnonto. 3% said Pascal back in the side. And 7% said Ampadu back into to center mid. So let's go ahead and just say 10% would make that change, because it's kind of implied that if Ampadu goes back into center mid, then Pascal would come into the center half position. So 10%. 85% said that no changes should be made in the squad. Conor, I'm inclined to agree with them. And it's unfair because, as you know, I think Pascal Strauch is a very good center half at this level. And we were very good defensively with him. But the combination of him at center half, of Ampadu at center half right now with Joe Rodon, who's, I think, the best purely defensive center half in the league. And that's not all he has to his game. He has more to his game. But just in terms of his defensive capability, I think he's the best center half in the division. And the way Ilya Gruev has been playing, he just gives us something a little bit different than any of the other midfielders in the stable. And Kamara, he may be the safe passer, but he's the engine in that midfield. He makes more passes and at an absurd degree of accuracy and is in great spots. And he's not just like hanging back in the hole. A lot of it is in the attacking third, just not the final pass. He's playing the pass before the final pass. I think Willy Gnonto, we just talked about it, adds things that Dan James doesn't. But more importantly than any of those individual arguments, you have to say, when you've won 7 matches in a row, you'd probably have to be brain dead to some degree to think about making changes. Or am I wrong? Would you actually make the changes, understanding that it's not fair to players like Pascal, who have played really well all season? But when you're winning like this and on a run that we haven't been on, I don't remember the last time we were on this run as a club. Maybe you do, but never mind. We've won 7 in a row, regardless of the division we're in. How do you change that lineup? I don't think you do.
No, I don't. I don't think you do. I think you're right, and this is the whole conundrum they're facing now. But it's a good thing, it's a
great
really good
thing, isn't it?
It's a good thing that you've got Ampadu there, and he's shown how good he is. I mean, Ampadu's just, I literally think he's the best signing in the Championship. I mean, he's not Championship level, he's Premier League level for me. I think when he was in central midfield, I thought he was the best player in the division at the time. At the time, obviously, players have come to the fore, and maybe some would say they've been a little bit better even for other teams. But I think Ampadu's been excelling, and now he's gone to centre back. And we always talk about Archie Gray, central midfield and right back, but now he's adding another string to his boat. He's playing more. I think he's playing difficult games at the start. People were saying, "Oh, well, it's Birmingham, it's Peterborough." You can't really judge him on that. But then he's going away to Bristol City, he's going away to Swansea, he's going away to Cardiff. We've got tough games at home as well that he's played, and he's added another feather to his bow, and he's excellent, Gabe. He's absolutely excellent. I mean, do you know what, Gabe? I was watching him, and I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, but I'd urge anybody to go and watch the one touch football that they were doing. I think it was pre-game. It's either in training or it was at Ellen Road pre-game. And he was so good. He's so good on the ball as well. And maybe you don't see that in games as much, but I've been so impressed with his left foot ball striking ability as well. I had no idea he had that in his sort of like, in his bag of tricks, really. But we're talking earlier on about Gruev starting, Kamara staying in there because Gruev and Ampadu are similar profiles in that midfield. This is what we're all talking about. We're talking about Pascal getting in, and I guarantee there is no drop off. The numbers back it up. Pascal, I'm sick of hearing this bullshit and it is pissing me off a little bit because
I know what you're going to say, and I agree
because we're doing well. Suddenly, when Pascal was in the side, he was having a poor season. Suddenly you have to bury him. Yeah, it must be this guy's fault that we were inconsistent and couldn't break down teams. Factually, that is bullshit. It's not true. Agreed. And the reason and the problem is, all you ever hear back is, well, I go to the game, so I see it. I do.
Then they should have seen 8 clean sheets with Pascal on the team.
Yeah, you've all seen 6 goals, and it's one of those things where we're talking right now about. The thing is, I put something out and one guy put back and said, it's who makes up these ratings and all this sort of stuff. Ratings is based on a large sort of surveillance of data, as we know, Gabe, that's compiled and that's how these ratings are made on these apps like SofaScore, right? So Ampadu is playing superbly well right now, but let's not have this sort of ridiculous notion. Pascal Strout was probably Leeds' man of the match in the Preston game that we lost. He was definitely, in my opinion, man of the match against Ipswich. But if you want to take all those variables out of it, if you want to take opinions out of it, and if you just want to look at those quantitative numbers which take opinions and feelings out of it, he has been one of Leeds' best performers this season when it comes to the numbers. That's exactly
you're right.
It gets rid of feelings. So that's the whole thing when we're talking about Pascal Strout. You are right, Gabe. Ultimately, I'm going around the topic. You are completely right. We should keep the squad, in my opinion, how it is right now. You can't change your winning side. But let's not have this bollocks notion that Pascal Strout's had a bad season because it's not fair.
100% agree with you. Football is an unfair business inherently, and most businesses are unfair, as I've experienced this week. But the reality is that this idea, the same people that are saying that Pascal Struck was somehow poor, we're talking about how we have the best defense in the Premiership in the first half of the season. So which is it? Oh yeah, sorry, in the Championship. Thank you. So which is it? You can't have the best defense or center half tandem in the division and have one of those center halves be poor. There's no underlying data. There are no visual performances that tell me that Pascal was poor. Even when he hasn't been at his best in a match, he's not been poor. He hasn't had the shocking. He's had a couple mental lapses here and there, but it's a whole season.
I think I don't know if you agree, Gabe, but I think the whole problem with a lot of, and I'm not inherently saying these people are wrong with their opinions, but to say he's had a bad season is just factually incorrect.
It is.
But when I
There's
think a lot of
support for that position.
I think a lot of this is being trumped up by some maybe poor games he's had previously, some poor campaigns he's had recently, 4 to 5, 6 month spells where people have just built up this notion that, Pascal's not good enough. And it's taken them sort of a while to understand maybe that Pascal has now developed as a footballer. And he went through 3 managers who really didn't develop him. He didn't develop on the back of Marcelo Bielsa at all, in my opinion. And he declined like a lot of Leeds players did. So, we have to look at him, in my opinion, as a bit of a new product this season. And I think he's been under a manager who isn't similar to Bielsa, obviously, but is familiar in some of the ideals that Bielsa brought to Leeds United. I think. Listen, let's boil this down, Gabe. If Strout was that bad and he was having a poor season, why before his injury didn't Daniel Farke put Ampadu at the back or bring Liam Cooper in? He was playing Pascal Strout at the back, first name on the team sheet every single week. So if he's that poor and he's had that bad of a season, then Daniel Farke must have been doing something wrong as well.
I don't want to belabor this because I don't think our patrons are in that camp that think that Pascal Struck was poor. And if you are, please mention it in the comments. I'll try to contain my more feral parts and
we might put this clip out. We might put this clip out on YouTube. Let's see what happens.
But two things can be true at the same time. Actually, let's go with three. Three seemingly competing notions can all be true at the same time. Pascal Struijk can have been one of the best center halves in the division. He can also be kept out of the team because of the way the team is playing without him. The same goes for Dan James, by the way.
Yep.
Because, or if we continue to win with Pirro, Bamford, who's come back in and played well, like if he stays out and we keep scoring and we keep winning, then do you bring him back in the team? The same is true with Ilya Gruev. The same is true with Archie Gray playing right back. You don't make the changes. However, if we go and drop points to Leicester, maybe you think about making some changes, right? But these things, you can have players that deserve to play. And I would argue that Dan James deserves to play. Willie Gnonto also deserves to play based on recent form. Because of the way the team is performing and the consistency they've found, you want to keep things consistent. One thing we've not talked about a lot on this channel, just in general, is kind of that team connectivity. What happens when it's just sometimes you play better, you communicate verbally and non-verbally better with some guys than you do with others. There's not always a logic behind it. Maybe your footballing brains are more compatible. You're always going to have, it doesn't always work, but there's a reason why, and I've said this before, about why managers go nuts for the notion of dropping a central midfielder down into center half, because central midfield is, I would say, probably the most challenging position to play in terms of the minute by minute demands on you. And you have to be a good one. Certainly there have been effective central midfielders that aren't this way, but to be a really good one, you have to be very, very intelligent, have a football IQ. Again, not always, and depends on what era of the game we're talking about. I don't want anybody asking me, what about Joey Barton? Clearly the guy's a moron. But in terms of footballing IQ, it's a very difficult position to play. So yeah, obviously, there could be just something to that. Also, I think a big thing we're missing here is that Daniel Farke takes a while to trust players. He doesn't naturally want to integrate new blood into the side. He said it before. He's talked about the difference between talented sides and sides that are together. And he really indexes that whole, I know it sounds very Ted Lasso. It sounds very rah-rah, but he really indexes that. He just says it in a way that isn't cringeworthy. And he really leverages that whole team spirit thing and being together.
But Gabe, do you know what annoys me a little bit? Why is it all a comparison of Ethan Ampadu and Pascal Struijk?
It shouldn't be. It should be also a comparison of Dan James and Willie Gnonto, Dan James, Ilya Gruev and Ethan Ampadu.
We should also look at the fact that it's now Junior Firpo, a left-sided left back who's in there. We now look at a situation where it's Bamford over Perot. Why are we making
it's all kind of come together at once? You can just say, hey, whatever's happened, this lineup together has caught fire, and we're going to run this until the wheels fall off. There's nothing wrong with just saying that.